So I started at Shure as a quality engineer in 1989. I had gone to the University of Wisconsin in Madison and graduated as a mechanical engineer. I think the year that I graduated, I was one of 3 women out of a class size of about 250 or 300. I guess I had learned what it's like to be the only female in the room. I did feel intimidated early on, and I felt like I was the only person in the room who wasn't getting it. So I would be reticent to raise my hand. And it wasn't until I kind of found a study group, and it was all guys, of course. It wasn't until that moment that I discovered I truly wasn't the only person who wasn't getting it. In fact, I learned in that day that I knew more than they did. As I got into my leadership roles, I wasn't advancing, I guess, to the speed that I had hoped. And I went and asked one of the division leaders about that. And he was a good ally, a good friend. And he said that I wasn't advocating for myself enough, that I hadn't made it clear that I wanted to advance, that everybody thought I was happy doing what I was doing and that I was good at it. And, that was maybe the assumption. So he actually helped me figure out how to get into a master's degree program. And that, opened up my mind to leadership and management. And then, of course, I was able to start advancing a little bit faster at that point. When I was on the executive team, then Mrs. Shure was just taking over the reins of the company after her husband had passed away. It was a remarkable experience to work, really shoulder to shoulder with her for 20 years. And we have annual service awards, and there's a luncheon given every year. And we did that in one of our factories in Mexico. And before the luncheon, she walked around the factory and shook the hands of every single person that worked there. And that just opened up my mind to somebody who you think, runs the company and maybe they don't worry about everybody. It demonstrated to me how important she thought everybody in the company was. When I meet people today that are starting out in their career, that's the first piece of advice that I give, to not be afraid, again, to raise your hand if you're not understanding something. And it could be the simplest of things. You're in a meeting, you're not following a problem that's being discussed. Don't be afraid to ask questions in the larger group, and you're going to find that you're not the only person in the room that doesn't know. And then the second would be to advocate for yourself. And if you feel like your career isn't advancing, you're stuck somehow, to find a friend or an ally that can kind of help you along the way. Ask for some mentoring help from somebody. People never say no. They never say no to that question. I have noticed a lot of change, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. And I think a lot of that came around not just because changes were happening in the AV industry, but in general, corporations were starting to pay a lot more attention to inclusiveness in their organizations and how would they improve the diversity of their companies. They understood if they were going to create innovative solutions, they needed to have a workforce that was more reflective of their customers. So I think there's been a lot more mentoring programs introduced, a lot more education introduced, just more attention to how do we attract people into this industry, which is unusual for people to get into in the first place. It's not easy to find a path to the AV industry, but then also to find, access and tap into places and schools and different groups where you can bring people in and just teach them more about what AV has to offer.